So, next project is the installation of tender springs. I believe in driving this and racing it in 5 different races. I think it sits a little too low, and comparing it to other vehicles, there seems to be, sometimes I see other XP4 1000s and they seem to be a little bit taller. Now, from my understanding, the stock tender spring, which is this up here, sags over time, plus you put more weight on it usually, like spare tires and different roll cage and all this other stuff, and it kind of makes it sag and sag and sag. The other thing I notice is when I look at it from the side, the trailing arm is like at this downward angle. And so my theory is that it needs to be raised up. And so what I did was, instead of going with a full-on new spring kit, like from Ibach, which I saw, and they were like, or Shock Therapy, which is like $700 or $800, I ordered from All Things UTV these tender springs, just to replace the stock ones. So that's what I'm going to do today. And it comes with these instructions. It comes with the 4 springs for like 300, I think it was like $300. And so first, they want you to measure, because it looks like there's measurements down here that when you add the springs and go back to static ride height, it should sit around these measurements. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to replace the tender springs. I had a conversation with someone. They said, oh no, they're supposed to be, collapsed, and then they're only supposed to work when, they get extended. And my understanding is that is true, but they also wear out and they go a little flatter than they should. And so I think I'm at that point. I think I'm at the point where they're just a little too flat, and I would like, you can also see like the radius arms in the back are like, they're kind of level. And all the other ones I see, they're at like this angle pointing down. So height-wise, I think I'm just sitting a little too low, and I'd like to raise it up. I also bottom out in a lot of the ruts at times. So I'm gonna see. It's a little experiment. Instead of just cranking the collar, which I think is not correct to do in my situation, to see if I get some more ride height out of it, I'm gonna replace the tender spring. So first things first, gonna get some measurements from the front lower A-arm mount, and then the rear ride height below the tow hook, and we'll record those. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna do some measurements, and then yeah, I'll keep making updates. Okay, so measurements. Before, we have in the front left, right below, right this point here, right there, and right there, 13 inches. And then I measured both sides of the rear and in the center. So here, here, and here. And they're 11.75 on both sides, and then 12 in the middle. So we'll see what measurements we get after that. Next step is lube and clean threads on all shocks with wire brush. And then we'll do the front first, and then move our way to the back. All right, so got the shock out, one of the front shocks, disassembled it. Here's the pieces. You got your lower collar here, then the spring, then this kind of mid plastic collar. This is the stock spring, front spring. This is the tender spring, aftermarket one, which is shorter. I assumed it would be taller, but I guess being shorter is going to make the collar be pushed down farther. Yeah, that's my theory anyway. There's a lot of wear on the body here. I don't know what the limit of that is and when you want to replace that. I cleaned up a little bit of the threads and everything. But there's no leak or anything from the shock, so I will get these rebuilt. I have not rebuilt the front shocks. I rebuilt the rear shocks. Had Walker Evans do that, but I've not done the front, so I'll probably do that at some point. But yeah, that's there you go. That's the front shock. The biggest, I think the harder thing about the rear shock is you have to take the reservoir off when you take the shock off. So other than that, yeah, that's the only part that makes it more difficult. So got the front shocks installed, and it already is, I mean, considerably, I don't know if you can see in the video, but the front is definitely sitting higher than it was before, which is good. Only thing is there's a bit of a noise coming from, it seems like this collar here. I don't know if that's good or bad, but yeah, seems to be higher. Let's see. It was at what did I say, 13 inches before? So let's measure. And now, oh, now it's at 15 3/4. So it's gone up considerably. Now, is that 15 3/4? The measurement they give you for a 30-inch tire is 14 1/2. So I'm going to put the rear ones in, even though it says to do that before you do the shocks in the rear. Oh, we will fine tune after you do the rear. It's just a starting point. Yeah, so I'm going to do the rears, and then I'll adjust ride height. But it's up higher, which I'm happy about, because that's what it needed. So let's see what the rears do, see how that goes, and then yeah, we'll do ride heights. We'll do like fine tuning of the ride height. So yeah, coming back at you. All right, so I don't know if you can see from the video, but it is sitting higher. These are now at a downward angle. So are the radius arms in the back. Now, I haven't settled the suspension, but it is definitely sitting taller. Just looking at it, it's sitting way higher than it was, which is what I wanted. I thought it sat a little too low. So, benefit of it sitting lower was center of gravity was down. Handling wise, might have been better. But the problem with that is you go into some of these ruts after, you know, a Pro R digs a hole or two holes, and I would scrape a lot. So, you know, there was a couple hard hits that I think were unnecessary, and I think this will help with that. I also think it will help in rocks, just to have that little bit of extra height. And I think it will also help with whoops, because in whoops, I was very limited into how fast I could go, even though, you know, there's some that I can go, you know, like full speed over. But there's so many that I just had to take my time. So we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't affect the handling too much. And this makes it's just the right adjustment. Instead of cranking the collars and getting it to height, I think this is a better solution. Kind of refresh the springs. Because if you do look at like the rear spring, the diameter of the wire is definitely very different. So spring rate is changed. And there's less coils in that one. So there's thicker wire, less coils. Now, I'm not any sort of suspension expert. I know a good amount, but I don't know You know, I don't know the little stuff. I'm not a suspension tuner, but I'm giving it a go. I'm giving it a go because it was simple, it was easy. You know, it took me a few hours to do it, and I took my time. So I'm gonna mess around with it and see. Probably take it for a test drive or two, and see what I can, what comes out of it and how it goes. So, I mean, it already, I can just looking at it, it's sitting a lot higher than it was. So I think that's a plus. So, yep, there you go. That's it for now. I'll probably take it for, I'd like to do a little bit of testing and put it on this video, just so it's not an installation video and there's a little bit more to it than that. But, you know, let's see how far I can get. All right, see ya. So here it is, finished sitting with the tender springs in. Just took it for a couple little quick laps just to kind of get everything to really settle before I do some final like fine tuning of the ride height and making sure everything is even on both sides. It seems to make the biggest impact in the rear, where if you look at the back here where the radius rods are, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but they're pointing downward now, where before they were level. And then in the side, if you look at the trailing arm is actually pointing at an angle down to the rear wheel, where before it was like almost just pointing up from level. So definitely a big difference. And I compared, you know, the rear tender spring diameter thickness of the coil to the stock, and it's thicker, and then you've gained a little bit of height with it. It's not as fully compressed as the stock one was on there, so there's a little bit more, you know, there's a little bit more, it seems like, compression now with that stage of spring. And if you think about the, you know, the weight you add with racing and all the safe, you know, all the stuff you have to put on the car, that adds extra weight. It definitely, I think you need a little bit more. Plus the age, you know, this is 2015, and the stock spring, tender spring, is a little bit worn out at this time. And then in the front, it doesn't seem to really do that big of a difference, even though there is more gap between the coils, and this is not as compressed, and it is actually a shorter spring, but it doesn't seem to be as effective in the front, which could be maybe I need to, you know, again, make some ride height adjustments just to kind of see. I seem to gain the most in the rear, which is kind of what I was going for, to get this rear up a little bit, an inch or two. Nothing crazy, but just to clear some more of the, when I'm in the ruts, so I don't bottom out on the skid plate so much. But yeah, that's it. I'll make some finer adjustments and kind of fine tune it before the next race. It's June right now, and the next race is until October, so we got some time to make some adjustments, do some testing, take it out, put some miles on it. Yeah, there it is.